Welcome to the Dragon's Den. I am your venerable host Orochi, and today we're going to talk about the only thing that really matters: dragons. Or sort of. Today we'll be talking about the book series Dragon Emperor by Eric Val. And I will first start off by saying the things that I like about this series before going into a little bit of a deep dive. I'm not going to go too deep into it because there's going to be problems, and we'll get to them. First off, this is rather well written. I like the way it's written and the things that the main character's point of view and backstory and his thinking processes, the way they get mixed with the other themes that are going on are really enjoyable, especially in this one right here, the first book. The first book was like all around just great. Has a lot of cool themes that I liked. And the way that it did them was like no nonsense. It knew exactly what it wanted to do, and it just did them. Didn't, try to subvert the tropes too much or play them up too much. It was just like, this is what we're doing and this is what we're going with, because this is the theme of an isekai, and the isekai is basically just a flash in the pan. It just happens because it's about a character and like one chapter maybe of learning his backstory and his family history and why he has the job he has and the way he is and his core values and that kind of stuff. And then he's going through his aunt's chest of drawers and moving stuff for her, and he finds like this chest of Mardi Gras stuff, and he finds this cool looking dragon outfit, and so he puts the mask on and the cloak on because they look like they're somehow like not leather, but they look like leathery scales and stuff. And then boom, the lights go out, he's in another world, and he is a dragon. Bam, that's it. Just a flash in the pan. That's the isekai. It doesn't fuck around with any of the stupidity of the tropes of, oh, you gotta die and all this stuff. It's like, nah, it's just like, bam, you're in another world. You're not even human anymore. Go. And I really liked that. I found it rather refreshing. There is so much isekai bullshit out there now that it's nice when things are just like, the only reason why we want an isekai is because we want a character who has like modern problems, modern knowledge, and modern issues and history. They don't even need to have like, the whole, oh, it's an isekai because this person has, science knowledge that they're going to use in the fantasy world, or medical knowledge that they're going to use in the fantasy world, or any of that kind of bullshit. It's just, we want them to have modern day sorts of problems, because when you think about a fantasy world, medieval-esque sorts of fantasy and stuff, and even like high fantasy, even like Renaissance sort of fantasy and stuff, you don't have characters who have the sorts of jobs that we have today and the sort of like social dynamics and all that stuff that we have today. So characters won't have the same like archetypal thinking processes that we do, because they just don't have the stuff that we do. And you can kind of mimic that in certain ways, but it's definitely a lot harder. And the isekai is just, you can make a relatable person who gets thrown into these different stuff, and it's a jumping off point. And I like the way that this does it, because it's just like, bam, it's done. And the other aspect is, oh, he's a dragon now. It's sort of weird because you look at a lot of the covers and he's just full quadrupedal dragon. But throughout the story, it never really gives a good description of what he looks like, because it's always from his point of view. And it does the cardinal sin, the thing that I hate, and that he takes human form like 90% of the time. But it's also like that weird Niku kind of thing, cat girl, dog girl, dragon girl kind of thing, where he's human ish, bipedal, but he's got scales and maybe horns sometimes and claws. And so it doesn't ever give like the full description. So you're wondering, is like, okay, well, is he a draconian, a dragon man, basically an anthro dragon, or is he the anime bullshit where it's 90% human but telltale, animal bullshit, because it describes him as having skin but then also scales here and there. So I think you can kind of take it either way if that's what you enjoy, because it doesn't really seem to have any effect on the story. It just kind of it doesn't really describe him properly, so you can go either way, which is actually kind of a benefit, I think, because being able to view it in both different lights without anything being a hard no is pretty good, especially since a lot of these pictures show him as an actual dragon, which almost never happens in the story. He starts out that way, and he takes dragon form like a couple times because he flies around a few times. But it's the normal thing. It's like, oh well, he was human, so he needs to be in human form because that's what he's comfortable with. That kind of story bullshit happens all the time. Irritates the fuck out of me. But at least this pays some good homage to, he almost always has claws and scales like maybe up to his elbow or something most of the time. So it's not he's blending in perfectly, because he's not. Even at the best, he's not blending in. Everybody looks at him and knows that he's the dragon dude, and dragons are pretty friggin' rare because they're conquerors of everything that they see. And that kind of butts up against one of the other core aspects of this, is that it is, I wouldn't quite go so far as to say it's wuxia kind of stuff, but it is definitely cultivation. It's got a lot of cultivation themes. One of the primary secondary characters is all about, she's the princess of the world, and she's immortal, and because her soul is of such purity and she's cultivated, and her father is the king of everything because he's the highest level of cultivation, that kind of stuff. And I don't have a lot of exposure to that, but I like the idea of it. But every cultivation story that I've read has been pretty terrible. Either it starts off terrible or it goes to places that I don't like. And so that kind of like gives me an idea. Is like, it sucks that even when you have cool like spirituality, that you would think, it's all about becoming a better person, yada yada yada, it's still, people are just trash at nature. So everybody, even the best things about becoming a better person can be corrupted into stupid fucking human garbage shit, which is unfortunate. But again, I haven't really read a lot of cultivation things. Like one of the other ones, I swear, was a book I read that was like poorly translated, because I'm like, there's no way it's written this way. It like periodically it sounds like it's written by an angsty 10-year-old. I'm like, oh, it's so bad. But other than that, good writing, good themes, and I don't know. The first book doesn't have much of this theme, but getting into the second book, and as you see quickly from then on, this becomes a romance-esque novel. And the vast majority of romance material I have seen, which I have not read much of, but I've seen a lot of them because I've worked at a used bookstore for a while, so I've seen a lot of books come through, and a lot of used books are romance novels. A large percentage of romance, the romance genre, is just fetish porn. That's just all it is. Whether you can see it or not, almost all of the books focus on a few key fetishes, even if they're like mainstream fetishes, like Girl Next Door, or, the big bat, the douchebag jock kind of stuff. It's like those are all, fetishy shit. It's all hyper focused on those few aspects of sexuality, and it overdoes it hard on those kinds of themes. And a lot of romance novels like go into some really weird stuff. Like, all you have to do is look at like the omniverse kind of thing, or Omegaverse kind of stuff. It's like that. Everything about that is fetish porn. That's what it is. So this eventually, rather quickly, there's, I believe, 21 books in this series right now. It was only 6 or 7 when I stopped reading it. But it quickly starts delving into some fetishy stuff, and there is full-on sex scenes in this, which I didn't mind at all. Like, that's why I won't say I recommend or say that this, or don't recommend this. The problems I had with this might not be things other people have problems with, and so you might enjoy it a lot more. But those are the good things. So the things that turned me off from this is that the whole idea is that he's a dragon, except for he used to be human. So instead of, having dragon desires of hoarding coins and power and all this stuff, he likes to hoard women, which on its surface value, which I think is kind of a major problem with this book series in general, is that at face value, it's fine. It's written well enough so that, it doesn't, not a giant red flag that screams, oh shit, this is psychologically problematic. But when you deconstruct, like, the background of the main character and, take a good hard look at a lot of the things that are being done, it's like, these are not healthy activities for somebody, and it gets bad. But it starts off real good because, the first woman he meets, she's physically powerful. She's the leader of a guild. She's the commander of all these people. She the leader of an adventuring guild, and he's like, wow, she has her shit together. She's smart. She's super fucking strong. She's compassionate. She's got her group together, and she's protecting these people. He loves her for all of these good qualities that she has, and so it works. When they talk with each other and they get to know each other, it all works. But then he meets this other woman who is, she's the princess. She's smoking fucking hot. She's super powerful. She's immortal. She has godlike powers, and she's defending this town against, the demons, because there's a demon scar that opened up, and the forces of darkness are constantly assailing the world, and all of these people who have the purest souls, because they've gone through and, done all the cultivation stuff so that they're like Star Lord kind of characters where, you know, they're superhuman in so many different ways and ethereal and all that kind of stuff. And so they're the protectors of the realm because they have these powers and it's their responsibility. So she has all these cool aspects, and that's why he likes her. And the same is true, you know, he's set up to be this compassionate character and all these cool things about him that these women are attracted to, but you can sort of like deconstruct the archetype of who he is, and it sort of boils down to the same romantic problem I have with so many romance novels where it's just like the big Chad guy who, you know, he's just got all of these good qualities and everything, and you know, all the bad stuff can just be overlooked or doesn't exist or never even gets mentioned and that kind of stuff. And it can be problematic if you just look into it at all. But throughout the first and most of the second book, everything works out fine, and it's the writing carries it. So you're just like, all right, this thing's a little bit problematic, but I like these characters. They're written well enough that it doesn't bother me too much. But then it starts getting into the sort of wonky shit that really irritates me, because he's like, oh fuck, I've got a problem, I'm in love with these two different women, and what the fuck am I gonna do about that? This sucks. I have to let one of them down, and I sort of know who it is because I definitely like one of them better than the other, but wow, that really sucks for me that I have to do this thing. And then it does the whole, oh, what? No, you're in a different culture now. Polygamy is normal around here. Owning a harem is perfectly okay. All guys have harems. Like, what? What kind of a guy wouldn't have a harem? Like, that's just normal. And so he's like, oh shit, I don't have to say no. I can have my cake and eat it too. And it's like, I can accept that. Like, at face value, that isn't a problem for me. It's like, once you sit down and realize, like, okay, well, this is adventure porn. It's not a porn adventure. There's a lot of adventure, a lot of plot, a lot of good story stuff going on, plus it has some porn bullshit going on. And so once you realize that that's where it's going, you can be like, all right, I'll suspend some of my disbelief and some of, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, it's a sexual fantasy kind of thing. I will let certain shit slide. And that's like number one up there is, you know, hey, he wants to have his cake and eat it too. Sure, that's fine. We'll go there. Because it's done well enough. The two women are already like practically in a relationship. It doesn't quite go so far as to start hitting into the, you know, lesbians are actual just bisexual as far as guys are concerned kind of area, because that was a huge problem when I was growing up, is that was the big idea. It's like, oh, lesbians just mean you get to have two women. It's like, oh, that kind of shit is just prime A garbage bullshit. So luckily this doesn't get into that kind of territory. Like, it sort of hints that had he not shown up and things went better for the two of them, these two women were best friends and they might have maybe become lovers at some point, because they are real best friends real fast. They have a lot of the same values and they just super get along, and they both like love him for all of the same reasons. So, you know, they're like, this is fine. We can share him. We both love him for the same stuff, and we're all busy doing all this other bullshit, so whatever. And I think that's sort of the only reason why something like this can work, is because everybody's busy with bullshit. Like, if you were living an idyllic life, then, you know, trying to split your time between multiple people, like, that can easily become problematic unless multiple people in the relationship are the kind of people who are like, I don't like hanging around the same people all the time. I need a lot of me time. Which is fine. There's people that are like that, and that's fine, but a lot of people aren't like that, and they need a lot of FaceTime. So that's the first thing where I was like, fine, this is fine. We'll continue on. And then a lot of story stuff happens, and we start going downhill because he meets this female dragon. She tries to kill him. She's more older and more powerful than he is, and all this other stuff. He manages to escape, and he's trying to find a way to make a deal with her because he needs to, start building the town that he's defending into her territory to get water and all this stuff. So he's trying to make a deal with her, and then it eventually culminates into a scene that basically the breakdown of this scene is that she's angry. She's a strong, angry woman, and the way he deals with that is to dick her down, because all she needs is a good fucking from a dominant man to put her in her place. And that whole scene just drove me fucking crazy because it's like, A, everything about this is disgusting. Like, the fact that she's stronger than him and could kill him, but she's allowing him to degrade her in all these ways because that's what she needs is just... And on one level, I can get it. I have known people who are into that sort of shit. But just on face value, she's angry, so this is the sort of stuff that she needs. She just needed a strong man to put her in her place kind of shit. Just irritates the fuck out of me. And then 2, this is on top of the fact that he has rather recently come into a relationship with 2 women that he says he loves. And as far as I'm concerned, that is a committed polygamous relationship. So having sex with a third party is breaking that relationship and cheating. As far as I'm concerned, that's what it was. And so I'm like, okay, there's so much shit going wrong here that you are starting to break any sort of immersion of, yeah, sure, this is a sex fantasy, but you're starting to do all this shit that's really pissing me off. And then the next step is that, oh, this other woman comes in, and she's strong, and she's the princess of her tribe, and she's got all these powers and everything. And he's like, she's hot. I need to dick her. I need to get inside her. That's my next goal. I need this. And I was just like, oh... No, like fucking no. If you wanted to make the, story of Chad guy goes around and fucks every hot bitch that he sees, that would have been fine. That's a choice of a sexual fantasy that you want to do, and that would be all right. But the fact that this starts off with decent characters who form a relationship with each other, and then he goes off and does this bullshit is like, that's just cheating to me. Like, there's no explanation for it. There is no excuse for this kind of fucking behavior. Even in a sexual fantasy, it doesn't work. It aggravates the fuck out of me. It's like, just don't have that relationship. Don't have a committed relationship between these 3 characters where they say that they love each other and want to be with each other, and then it's not an open relationship. They never discuss being in an open relationship. And so it drives me crazy. And the one saving grace, which might have even happened in a later book that I didn't get to, is that his parents died or whatever, and so he gets an adoptive father figure in this world, and his father figure is a fox guy. And, that generally means foxes tend to be effeminate and all this kind of stuff. And so it was like, hey, it's cool that, his adopted father figure isn't, also a Chad, himbo, fucking whatever kind of bullshit thing. That's kind of cool. I rather like that. And then these other characters show up. This guy who's, on the same level as the princess, where he's super cultivated and he's a blade saint and all this stuff, and so they become, battle brothers and blade brothers and all this kind of shit. I'm like, okay, he's getting a relationship with this dude, and he's in a polygamous relationship where the kind of shit that he's doing is fine. The one thing I would have accepted to make all of this dumb fantasy bullshit fit is that this new guy that is his battle brother should sleep with his women, and he would have to deal with the consequences of, oh, I can't just have my cake and eat it too, I have to share, because that's what's fair. Like, if they had dealt with those kinds of things, then I might have been able to continue on, but we didn't get there, and it just slid into unacceptable fucking porn area for me. And you can kind of see that that's all it was about later on, because this is the cover of the first book. It's fantastic. You got the hot chick and the dragon. That's great. Second one, you have the other hot chick, and she's obviously riding the dragon. That's cool. But then we go into, so the dragon's not even in there now. Now it's just a fucking 98% naked chick. Like, this is just centerfold smut bullshit. What the fuck happened? And then we continue on, and it's like, that's where we're going, huh? That's all we're going for. We've dropped any pretense of having it be adventure related, and this is all we're going for. And then this one's like, hey, we might be bringing it back. We might be saving some of this shit, because this is like the first couple. That's great. But then, we're back to this bullshit. And it continues on. And on. And on. And on. And I haven't read any of this author's other stuff, but all the covers for all of his other books are this. They're all just harem smut bullshit. Which, if that's your thing, that's fine. I mean, a lot of them might be good if he can keep out the stuff that I don't like. Like, just don't have your characters in committed relationships, and then that's fine. Don't have your characters, do, like, really problematic shit. Like, oh, she just needs to be dicked down to put her in her place kind of shit. Like, that's not acceptable. Or the next one after that was like, oh, she's this innocent girl next door, doesn't expect anything. Oh, I need a piece of that. Like, there's a reason certain things are problematic, and it's because they're just unhealthy. Thinking about these things in those way is unhealthy. Even as a fantasy, it can definitely be unhealthy, which is kind of my main problem on anything that's romance novel or like stuff from Lifetime television, because they are so one-sided and so far removed from reality that, dipping into it a little might be fine. But if you consume a lot of that media, it's going to severely skew the way that you look at things, and it's not healthy. So, yeah, if those sorts of things don't bother you so much, you might get a lot more enjoyment out of this than I did. Because at first, I like the mix of the dragon and doing all of this cool heroic stuff and getting the hot chicks and all of that kind of stuff. That was great. But then once I started mixing in not having open relationships and openly cheating and doing so in very unhealthy ways, was just like, nope, we're quickly getting out from anything I can deal with, which is why I stopped here. I finished the third book, and I was like, this is no longer for me, so I'm going to quit right here. But again, you might have different interests, so this might be good for you. But be careful if you do get into it, or perhaps any of his other stuff, because it keeps getting suggested to me now, and I'm like, covers like this are a massive turnoff for me, because I'm like, this tells me one thing. There's only one thing in the book. This is it. There's nothing else going on. I've looked at enough romance novels, and the synopsises for them are always terrible. And so, yeah. So that is it for now. Good evening.